my question is, well, with respect to check-the-box action related to this hybrid mismatch inheritance, because it is, well, very famous that, for example, American investments are structured. For example, American investments to the United Kingdom are usually structured through the use of hybrids. Yeah. And taking into consideration that these check-the-box rules were historically developed and exist for 20 years right now, so what is the future of check-the-box generally after all this BEPS initiative?
Well, the question is what's going to happen to check the box. And yes, it's clear that OECD didn't tell us we had to repeal check the box. In the US domestic context, there is a very strong strain of opinion that check the box made a great deal of sense as applied in the domestic context, that we adopted it thinking about the domestic context, and that it has in fact been a disaster in the international context. I don't think you see people pressing to repeal check the box, but what you do find is specific targeted overruling of check the box. We have, for example, in the context of our CFC rules, a whole new set of regulations which say, if you check the box to create one big company in Luxembourg with operations everywhere, then for purposes of our CFC rules, we're going to uncheck the box and say, what you're doing in Germany may be fine, manufacturing. What you're doing in France may be fine, selling. But what you're doing, pumping all of that income into Ireland where it has no connection, would be the exactly wrong thing if Ireland were separately incorporated. So we're unchecking the box to make Ireland separately incorporated for this specific purpose. And so you see a whole new regime where we're solving a problem that was entirely and completely of our own making. In the foreign tax credit area, where we have seen abuses using check-the-box entities to create duplicate foreign tax credits, once using the same taxes to satisfy European liability and to get a US foreign tax credit, we changed one sentence in the regulations relating to the foreign tax credit to restrict the ability of a company to use foreign taxes as a credit against the US tax liability if they were simultaneously being used as a credit against anyone else's. So I think the long answer, or the short answer to your question is what you will see is increasing focus on particular areas where check the box has produced unfortunate results in the international context. But that's exactly what BEPS tells us to do, is to say if you see a hybrid situation, deal with it. And we are dealing with them one by one, trying to get around that. And in that respect, check the box notwithstanding, we're right in keeping with what the rest of the world is doing, and saying you shouldn't be able to use hybridity, whether it's hybrid entities or hybrid instruments, to produce unfortunate results either in the United States or, from the other country's point of view, from the other countries.
Professor Smiley, could you please explain the essence of inversion concept? Is it a general anti-avoidance rule or not?
Oh, well, everything is general anti-avoidance. The essence of inversion is one morning I have a huge, valuable, profitable American multinational pharmaceutical corporation, all of the worldwide income of which is theoretically subject to US tax. And then the tax lawyers come in and they swirl around their hands, and the next morning you wake up and that corporation is now an Irish corporation. And to the extent it is actually doing stuff in the US, it will be taxable in the US as a foreign corporation engaged in business in the United States. And to the extent it had subsidiaries that were doing business in the rest of the world, you will discover that over time they disappear, they stop doing anything, they stop earning any money, They lend all their money to somebody else, and all in the future, everything that gets done outside the United States is done by foreign subsidiaries of this new Irish company, and therefore is not subject to US tax. So that what you have done is escaped US worldwide income taxation for the future. You have not escaped US taxation of your actual US income. And you have done it in a way that is carefully constructed to produce as little tax as possible. If you, the chief financial officer of this US multinational, looks at your shareholders, and they have all owned their shares from the beginning of time and have a very low basis in their shares, and you do a transaction which will be treated as them selling their shares in exchange for the shares of this new Irish company, you may say they'll never agree to this. They won't be willing to pay this tax. They might die and get a stepped up basis and never have to pay that tax at all. So for some companies, an inversion is too expensive. A one-time tax to get from here to there is too high. But it turns out that if you look at the shareholder profile of many big US multinational companies, who do you find? First of all, you find foreigners. Foreigners who are not taxed on the gain from the sale of stock of a US company. So they don't care if it's a taxable transaction. And who else do you find? Pension funds. Pension funds are not taxable at all. So they don't care if this transaction is taxable. And who else do you find? Charities. Charities are tax-exempt organizations that do not pay tax at all. And maybe you have some hedge funds who bought shares recently and who can sell them without a lot of gain. You do a shareholder by shareholder analysis and you figure out, can I do a transaction which is taxable to the shareholders today without producing an unacceptable level of tax today? And to the people who are going to pay tax today, I show them this projection that says, and by the way, the benefit of paying a little bit of tax today is that you won't pay all of this tax anytime in the future. Okay.